Hey everyone, welcome back. Today, we're diving into a book that holds a mirror up to one of the most powerful, yet often unseen, forces in our lives: our ego. We're talking about Ryan Holiday's transformative work, Ego is the Enemy. Now, when you hear the word ego, you might think of arrogance, narcissism, or someone who's just full of themselves. And while those are certainly manifestations of ego, Holiday argues that it's far more subtle, insidious, and ultimately a much bigger threat to our success and happiness than we often realize. This book isn't about being overly confident or having a healthy self-esteem. Those are crucial for navigating life. Instead, Holiday zeroes in on an unhealthy belief in our own importance. It's that voice inside that tells us we're special, that we're entitled, that we know everything, or that we're above the rules. It's the constant need for validation, the inability to learn, the defensiveness when challenged, and the deep-seated fear of being wrong or appearing anything less than perfect. This internal enemy, often disguised as ambition or confidence, is precisely what trips us up at every stage of our journey. Think about it. How many times have you seen someone with immense talent or potential self-destruct? How often has a great idea failed, not because of external competition, but because the person leading it was too stubborn, too proud, or too convinced of their own genius to adapt? Holiday, drawing on Stoic philosophy and countless historical examples, from the rise and fall of brilliant generals to the quiet perseverance of unsung heroes, shows us that ego is the common denominator in so many downfalls. It's the internal saboteur that prevents us from truly learning, from adapting, from collaborating, and from finding genuine, lasting fulfillment. We've perhaps experienced moments where our own ego led us astray. Maybe we talked ourselves out of a valuable learning opportunity, refused to listen to critical feedback, or held on to a flawed idea because our pride wouldn't let us admit we were wrong. This book provides a mature, nuanced perspective, offering a path to recognize ego's subtle whispers and to cultivate the virtues that keep it in check. Holiday divides his argument into three key stages of life: aspiring, succeeding, and failing. He shows how ego manifests differently at each stage, always working to undermine us. When we're starting out, ego tells us to talk instead of work, to seek attention instead of actual competence. When we find success, ego inflates, making us arrogant, complacent, and brittle. And when we face setbacks, ego externalizes blame, keeps us from learning, and turns us into victims. This isn't about eradicating ambition or confidence. It's about purifying them. It's about building a foundation of humility, discipline, and relentless self-awareness that allows us to truly grow, learn, and contribute meaningfully without our own self-importance getting in the way. It's about finding the inner strength to confront our own worst impulses, to embrace the truth, and to do the necessary, often unglamorous work. As we go through Holiday's insights, prepare to look inward. Prepare to challenge some deeply ingrained beliefs about what it means to be successful and how to live a good life. This book isn't just about avoiding pitfalls. It's about freeing yourself from a silent enemy so you can achieve your true potential and live with greater purpose and integrity. Let's embark on this journey to unmask the inner enemy and cultivate a stronger, wiser self. Talk, talk, talk. The danger of premature action. This is a crucial stage. and it's where ego often manifests in its most subtle yet destructive form. All talk, no action. Ryan Holiday calls this the danger of premature action, but it's really about premature proclamation. It's the tendency to talk endlessly about our big ideas, our grand plans, our future achievements, rather than actually putting in the quiet, diligent work required to make them a reality. Think about it. We've all been there or seen others do it. You get a brilliant idea, feel a surge of inspiration, and immediately want to share it with everyone. You post about it on social media. You tell your friends, your family, your colleagues. You sketch out elaborate plans, create fancy presentations, and spend hours imagining the applause and recognition. You feel good, even accomplished, just from talking about it. That's ego at work, extracting premature satisfaction. Holiday argues that this verbalization, this outward broadcasting of our intentions, is actually a substitute for real work. When we talk about doing something, our brains often register that as having already done it. We get a little hit of dopamine, a burst of approval from others, and our ego feels validated. But here's the rub. That fleeting feeling of satisfaction robs us of the hunger and humility needed to actually do the difficult, unglamorous work. We've already claimed the prize in our minds before the race has even begun. We might fall into the trap of advising endlessly, pontificating in meetings, or building elaborate strategy decks, all while the actual dirty work of execution languishes. The danger extends beyond just a false sense of accomplishment. When you constantly talk about what you will do, you also create a public persona that you then have to defend. You put pressure on yourself to live up to the hype, which can lead to taking shortcuts, cutting corners, or even abandoning the project entirely if it gets too hard, just to avoid failing publicly. Ego cares more about appearing successful than being successful. What's the antidote? Humility and quiet diligence. Holiday encourages us to cultivate a doer's mentality rather than a talker's mentality. This means work in silence. Let your results speak for themselves. The less you talk, the more you listen, and the more you focus on the actual mechanics of getting things done. Delay gratification. Don't seek premature praise. Find satisfaction in the process, in the mastery of your craft, rather than in external validation. Embrace the blank canvas. Approach new projects with a beginner's mind, assuming you have everything to learn and nothing to prove. The greatest achievements rarely begin with a fanfare. They begin with humble, focused effort, day after day, out of the spotlight. Ego wants the spotlight. True progress happens in the shadows. By taming the impulse to talk, we preserve the hunger, the humility, and the raw energy needed to turn our aspirations into genuine realities. Let your actions make the noise, not your words. Always be a student. Following on from the dangers of all talk, the antidote and a cornerstone of effectively starting any endeavor is the principle, always be a student, cultivating what's often called the beginner's mindset. Ryan Holiday emphasizes that at the aspiring stage, ego loves to convince us that we already know enough, that we're experts, or that we don't need to be taught. This is a fatal flaw, because true growth and mastery only come from a continuous willingness to learn. Think about it. When you're a beginner at anything, a new hobby, a new skill, a new job, you're naturally humble. You ask questions, you listen intently, you accept feedback, and you're eager to absorb knowledge from anyone willing to share it. You approach challenges with curiosity rather than defensiveness. This open, receptive state is incredibly powerful for learning and improvement. Ego, however, despises this vulnerability. It tells you that asking questions makes you look weak or ignorant. It insists that admitting you don't know something diminishes your perceived authority. It whispers that you're already smart enough, that you don't need to read that book, attend that workshop, or listen to that advice. But the moment we stop being a student, we stop growing. The world is constantly changing, new information emerges, and the landscape of any field evolves. If your ego convinces you that you're above learning, you quickly become stagnant, then obsolete. The greatest masters in any field, from athletes to artists to entrepreneurs, are often those who maintain a lifelong commitment to learning, who approach every new challenge with the curiosity of a novice. They know there's always something new to discover, a different perspective to consider, a skill to refine. Holiday points to historical figures who exemplified this, individuals who, despite their achievements, remained perpetual learners. They didn't let their past successes or their current status blind them to new knowledge. They understood that true wisdom isn't about knowing everything, but about knowing how much you don't know, and then eagerly seeking to fill those gaps. So, how do we cultivate this beginner's mindset and keep ego from blocking our learning? Actively seek feedback. Don't just wait for it. Ask for constructive criticism, especially from people you trust, to be honest, even if it stings. Read voraciously and widely. Expose yourself to new ideas, different perspectives, and challenging concepts. Embrace new experiences. Step outside your comfort zone and try things where you are genuinely a novice. This quickly humbles ego. Ask stupid questions. Don't be afraid to voice what you don't understand. Chances are, others have the same question. See every interaction as a learning opportunity. Everyone you meet, every situation you encounter holds a potential lesson if you're open to it. By consistently choosing to be a student, you chip away at ego's defenses. You cultivate humility, which is the fertile ground for true knowledge and growth. You transform challenges into learning experiences and setbacks into valuable lessons. This mindset doesn't just benefit your career, it enriches your entire life, making you more adaptable, more resilient, and ultimately a much wiser individual. Never stop learning, and you'll never stop growing. Continuing our exploration of ego in the aspiring stage, let's talk about a core principle that counters the all-talk trap, the value of doing, emphasizing less talk and more action. Ryan Holiday consistently drives home this point. Real progress, true mastery, and genuine achievement are built on consistent, quiet, often unglamorous work, not on grand pronouncements or flashy self-promotion. Ego, especially when we're just starting or aiming for something big, wants us to believe that the perception of effort is as good as the effort itself. It's a dangerous delusion. Think about the countless people with brilliant ideas who never get anything done, or the endless meetings where plans are discussed and debated, but concrete steps never materialize. Ego loves the idea of achievement, the dream of success, and the comfort of intellectualizing, but it shrinks from the messy, difficult, and often monotonous reality of actually doing the work. Doing involves risk, effort, and the possibility of failure, things ego desperately wants to avoid. Holiday reminds us that the world doesn't care about your intentions, your potential, or your impressive plans. It cares about results. It cares about what you produce, what you build, what you deliver. This means getting your hands dirty, showing up day after day, and grinding through the inevitable challenges. It means focusing on the fundamental tasks, the small, consistent actions that compound over time into something significant. The antidote is to cultivate a bias for action and a profound respect for the process of creation. This isn't about being a workaholic, but about being deeply engaged with the craft. It means embracing the grind, understanding that mastery comes from repetition and consistent effort, even when it's boring or difficult. Starting small, starting now. Don't wait for perfect conditions or grand opportunities. Take the first concrete step, then the next. Focusing on outputs, not inputs. Don't just count hours worked. Measure what you actually accomplished and delivered. Learning by doing. The best way to learn is often through direct experience, through trial and error, through the feedback loop of action and consequence. Staying humble about your progress. Don't broadcast every small victory. Let the work speak for itself. This keeps you hungry and focused on the next challenge. Holiday illustrates this with examples of historical figures who chose obscurity and relentless effort over public acclaim. They understood that true power comes from building something substantial, brick by brick, away from the gaze of others. They let their actions make the noise, while they themselves remained quiet and focused. By valuing doing over talking, you actively combat ego's need for validation and premature gratification. You build genuine competence, cultivate resilience, and ultimately achieve far more than any amount of self-promotion ever could. The path to real achievement is paved with sweat and quiet diligence, not with grand words. So turn off the noise, roll up your sleeves, and get to work. Your future self will thank you. The power of reality. As we continue to navigate the early stages of aspiration, another critical battleground against ego is our relationship with reality. Ryan Holiday stresses that ego actively distorts our perception of the world, making us believe what we want to believe rather than what is true. This is where the power of reality and the crucial need to embrace objectivity come in. Ego wants to live in a comforting fantasy. True progress demands that we see things exactly as they are, without delusion or self-deception. Think about it. Ego loves to tell us how talented we are, how unfair a situation is, how brilliant our idea is, or how much more deserving we are than others. It whispers sweet nothings that inflate our sense of self-importance and protect us from uncomfortable truths. This is a survival mechanism for ego, but it's a death knell for actual learning and growth. If you can't see things accurately, you can't make effective decisions, you can't adapt, and you certainly can't improve. Holiday reminds us that reality is objective, indifferent to our feelings or desires. It simply is. The market doesn't care about your brilliant idea if it doesn't meet a need. Your boss doesn't care about your excuses if you don't deliver. Your health doesn't care about your wishful thinking if you neglect it. Ego, however, tries to bend reality to its will, or to interpret every event through the lens of its own fragile self-image. This leads to endless frustration, blame, and a persistent inability to learn from mistakes. The antidote to ego's distortions is a relentless commitment to truth and objectivity. This means seeking brutal honesty, not just from others, but from yourself. What are the facts? What are the verifiable results? What are the cold, hard truths of the situation? Questioning your assumptions. Don't take your initial impressions or comfortable beliefs as gospel. Actively challenge them. Embracing data and evidence. Let numbers, feedback, and verifiable outcomes guide your understanding, rather than intuition or wishful thinking. Listening more than you talk. Others often see things you don't. Their perspective, even if critical, is a gift of reality. Detaching from the outcome. Don't let your ego be so invested in a particular result that you can't see the truth of what's happening. Understanding what's within your control. As Marcus Aurelius taught, many external events are indifferent. Your judgment of them is what you control. Remove the ego-driven judgment, and you see reality more clearly. Holiday points to historical figures who achieved greatness by their ruthless commitment to seeing things as they were, even when it was painful. They didn't let ego dictate their perceptions. They let reality inform their decisions. This radical acceptance of facts, even uncomfortable ones, is the foundation of genuine adaptability and effective action. By consistently choosing to confront reality head-on, you strip ego of its most powerful weapon, delusion. You develop an inner resilience that isn't dependent on a flattering self-image, but on an accurate understanding of the world. This embrace of objectivity is not just a path to greater effectiveness, it's a path to profound wisdom and liberation from the ego's constant, exhausting demands for validation. See clearly, act effectively, and build on solid ground. Rejecting the spotlight and embracing the path of inconspicuous work. Ryan Holiday makes it clear that ego, especially when we're starting out, craves attention, recognition, and public validation. It wants the fanfare, the applause, and the immediate perception of importance. But true progress, genuine skill development, and the building of something truly substantial often happen quietly, diligently, and away from the public gaze. Think about it. When you're trying to master a complex skill, learn a new craft, or build a nascent business, what do you need most? Focus. Uninterrupted time. The freedom to make mistakes without public scrutiny. The ability to experiment, iterate, and refine without the pressure of an audience. The spotlight, however, does the opposite. It creates pressure, invites criticism, and often leads to performing for others rather than genuinely improving for yourself. Ego loves the idea of being discovered, of a shortcut to fame or success. It whispers that if you're not getting attention, you're not important. This leads people to spend more time on personal branding, social media presence, or networking events than on the actual work that generates real value. They become more concerned with appearing to be someone important than being someone important through their deeds. Ego can trick us into thinking we need to constantly be visible, always contributing to the conversation, or leading every initiative. This can prevent us from taking on new, challenging roles that might require us to start as a nobody again, or from quietly dedicating ourselves to deep work that doesn't immediately yield public accolades. We might fear that stepping back from the spotlight means losing relevance. But Holiday argues that the greatest work is often done in obscurity. It's the scientist toiling in the lab for years, the writer honing their craft with countless drafts, the entrepreneur building their product brick by brick before anyone notices. These individuals are driven by internal motivation, the love of the work itself, the desire for mastery, the pursuit of a genuine purpose, rather than the external reward of public recognition. The path of inconspicuous work means focusing on the craft, obsessing over the quality of your output, not the recognition it might bring, embracing anonymity, finding power and freedom in not needing to be seen or acknowledged, doing the unglamorous work, recognizing that true progress often involves tedious, repetitive, or difficult tasks that no one else sees, protecting your time and energy, guarding your focus from distractions and the constant pull of public performance, letting your results speak, believing that if your work is truly excellent, it will eventually find its audience without you having to shout about it. Holiday shares examples of historical figures who deliberately avoided the spotlight, not out of shyness, but out of a strategic understanding that deep work requires undisturbed concentration. They knew that ego thrives on external validation, and by denying it that fuel, they could focus on what truly mattered, the work itself. By consciously rejecting the spotlight, especially in the early stages, you starve your ego of the attention it craves. You cultivate humility, discipline, and a profound respect for the process. This isn't about being invisible forever. It's about building a strong foundation, a solid core of competence before you ever step onto a larger stage. It's about building something of substance that will endure, rather than chasing fleeting fame. Choose the quiet path, and let your work make the noise when it's truly ready. Success is a test. Doc I. We've talked about how ego manifests when we're aspiring. But what happens when we actually achieve some of those aspirations? This brings us to a crucial stage in Ryan Holiday's framework, ego and success, and the profound truth that success is a test. This isn't just a metaphor. It's a stark warning that success, far from being a reward, often becomes the very thing that reveals and inflates our ego, making us brittle, and ultimately setting us up for a fall. Think about it. You work hard, you achieve a goal, you get a promotion, launch a successful business, or gain recognition. What's the natural human response? A sense of pride, confidence, and perhaps a feeling of invincibility. This is precisely where ego sees its opening. It whispers, "You did it. You're special. You're invincible. You don't need to work as hard now. You can cut corners. You can stop listening to others. You know best." This is the peril of overconfidence. When success hits, ego tells us it was all due to our innate genius, our brilliance, our unique qualities. It ignores the role of luck, timing, collaboration, and the foundations built by others. It blinds us to our weaknesses and makes us believe we're immune to failure. This leads to complacency, recklessness, and an inability to adapt. We stop learning, we stop questioning, and we start taking unnecessary risks because our ego tells us we can't fail. We've earned our stripes, we have a track record, and there's a natural inclination to feel a sense of accomplishment. But this is precisely when ego can strike hardest. We might become less open to feedback from junior colleagues, dismissive of new ideas, or so convinced of our own proven methods that we fail to innovate or see changing market conditions. This is how successful companies stagnate, and how accomplished individuals lose their edge. Holiday illustrates this with countless historical examples. Leaders who, after a string of victories, became arrogant and overextended. Innovators who, after a groundbreaking discovery, stopped experimenting and became rigid. Their initial success was a test, and their ego caused them to fail it. The antidote to ego in success is a conscious commitment to continued humility, remembering that every success is built on countless factors, many outside our control. Attributing success to effort and process, not just innate brilliance. Sustained discipline, doubling down on the fundamentals that brought success in the first place. Not letting up on hard work or attention to detail. Objectivity and self-awareness. Continuously seeking honest feedback, even when it's uncomfortable. Asking, what could go wrong? What am I missing? A beginner's mind. Again, approaching new challenges with the curiosity and humility of someone who still has much to learn. Even if you're at the top. Remembering the why. Focusing on the purpose of the work, rather than the accolades it brings. Success is not the destination, it's just another turn in the road. And it's a turn that tests your character more than any failure. Ego wants you to believe you've arrived, but true wisdom recognizes that every achievement is simply an invitation to more learning, more work, and more humility. Don't let your past wins become your future downfall. Stay sober, stay vigilant, and let success be a springboard for deeper growth, not an excuse for ego to take over. The curse of the big idea. Continuing our discussion of ego and success, let's explore a particularly insidious manifestation, the curse of the big idea, and how it leads to losing touch with reality. After experiencing some success, ego loves to convince us that we possess some special, almost divine insight. It tells us that our initial wins weren't due to diligent execution or favorable conditions, but to a unique genius that now grants us infallibility. This leads to grand, often untested big ideas that are disconnected from the messy realities of implementation. Think about it. You've had a breakthrough, perhaps a successful project, or a significant achievement. Your ego takes credit, whispers that you're brilliant, and suddenly, every idea you have feels like a stroke of genius. You start to believe your own hype. You become less inclined to solicit feedback, to rigorously test your assumptions, or to listen to dissenting opinions. Why? Because ego tells you that you're beyond needing those things. You're the visionary, the one with the big idea. This leads to a dangerous detachment from the ground truth. You might become enamored with the abstract concept, the lofty vision, without fully understanding the practical challenges, the resources required, or the actual market demand. You become a strategist who's too good for tactics, or a visionary who's too important for details. This is where many successful individuals and organizations falter. They get high on their own supply, consumed by their own perceived brilliance, and ultimately lose touch with the very reality that enabled their initial success. Holiday illustrates this with figures who, after initial triumphs, indulged in grandiose schemes that ultimately led to their downfall. They forgot the humble beginnings, the hard work, and the reality checks that once kept them grounded. Their ego convinced them they were invincible, leading them to pursue projects that were either unfeasible, unnecessary, or completely out of touch with what the world actually needed. The antidote to the curse of the big idea is a relentless commitment to humility, reality testing, and incremental progress. It means staying grounded in data and feedback. Don't let your intuition override objective evidence. Embracing small wins. Recognizing that true progress is often made through a series of small, consistent steps, not one giant leap. Iterating and experimenting. Instead of launching a massive, untested big idea, start with small experiments, learn, and adapt. Listening to the little people, The people on the front lines, the engineers, the customer service reps, often have the most valuable insights into reality. Don't let ego make you dismiss them. Focusing on problems, not just solutions. True innovation comes from deeply understanding a problem, not just having a clever idea. Cultivating self-awareness. Regularly checking your own biases and assumptions. Are you genuinely open to being wrong? By consistently challenging your own big ideas with reality, you starve ego of its grandiosity. You maintain a vital connection to the practicalities of execution and the needs of the real world. This approach doesn't stifle creativity, it channels it productively, leading to sustainable success built on solid ground, not on the fragile foundations of inflated ego. Stay humble, stay grounded, and let reality be your guide, not your ego. Staying sober, the need for continued discipline and reality checks. Ryan Holiday explains that when success hits, it's like a potent intoxicant. It makes us feel powerful, infallible, and capable of anything. This mental high is precisely when ego takes over, leading to complacency and a dangerous lack of vigilance. The antidote is to remain disciplined, grounded, and to never stop seeking out the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. Think about it. You've achieved something significant. The praise is flowing. The rewards are coming in. It's natural to want to relax, to feel that you've earned the right to coast a bit. But this is exactly what ego wants you to do. It tells you, you've arrived. You don't need to work as hard. You can trust your gut now. You're above the rules. This leads to a dangerous erosion of the very discipline, diligence, and focus that brought you success in the first place. Holiday points out that success doesn't make you bulletproof. It makes you brittle. The higher you climb, the further you can fall. And the fall is often precipitated by the unchecked ego that success inflates. You become complacent. You stop innovating. You stop listening to critical feedback, and you start making decisions based on hubris rather than clear-eyed reality. The antidote to this intoxication is a conscious commitment to sober vigilance and continuous reality checks. This means maintaining discipline. Don't abandon the habits that brought you success. Keep showing up. Keep doing the fundamentals, even when they feel mundane. Seeking uncomfortable truths. Actively solicit critical feedback. Surround yourself with people who will challenge you, not just praise you. Create systems that force you to confront data and reality. Practicing humility. Remind yourself of the role of luck, timing, and the contributions of others in your success. Never forget your humble beginnings. Staying a student. As we discussed earlier, never stop learning. Assume there's always more to know and new skills to acquire. Avoiding the spotlight. Don't let public acclaim distract you from the actual work. Keep your focus internal, on your craft and your purpose. Embracing self-awareness. Regularly check your own biases, assumptions, and emotional state. Are you acting from ego or from clear reason? Holiday provides historical examples of individuals and empires that failed precisely because they became intoxicated by their own success, losing their discipline and ignoring inconvenient truths. They stopped staying sober, and their ego led them into dangerous overconfidence and eventual ruin. By consciously choosing to stay sober after success, you protect yourself from ego's most seductive trap. You maintain the mental clarity, the humility, and the relentless drive that are essential for sustained achievement and continued growth. Success is a test, not a destination. Pass it by staying grounded, disciplined, and perpetually open to reality, no matter how much your ego wants to believe you're invincible. The importance of control. This brings us to the importance of control, specifically about directing our energy and expectations where they actually belong. Ryan Holiday, drawing heavily from Stoicism, emphasizes that ego frequently pushes us to try and control external outcomes, things entirely outside our power, while neglecting the one thing we can control, our internal state, our effort, and our choices. Think about it. When you've achieved something, there's a natural desire to want to solidify that success, to ensure it continues, to control the future. Ego tells us that if we just push harder, strategize more, or manipulate circumstances, we can guarantee specific results, a certain amount of wealth, a particular level of fame, a specific outcome for a project, or complete control over how others perceive us. This leads to endless anxiety, frustration, and disappointment, because most of these external outcomes are simply beyond our control. This is a direct violation of the dichotomy of control that Marcus Aurelius championed. Our ego wants to own the outcomes, the accolades, the praise. It wants to micromanage every variable to ensure a perfect result, driven by a deep-seated fear of failure or a loss of status. But when we chase control over external events, we waste immense amounts of energy, become brittle when things don't go our way, and ultimately feel powerless because we're focusing on the wrong things. Ego can convince us that our intelligence or our effort should guarantee a certain result, leading to burnout and profound dissatisfaction when reality inevitably diverges from our expectations. We become emotionally invested in things we simply cannot command. Holiday argues that true power and peace come from directing our energy to where we actually have control. Our effort, our attitude, our character, our process, and our response to circumstances. It's about letting go of attachment to specific outcomes, and instead becoming utterly devoted to the virtuous inputs. The antidote to ego's misdirection of control is a deliberate focus on process over outcome. Obsess over doing the work well, with integrity, and with full effort, rather than fixating on the end result. Internal metrics. Measure your success by your discipline, your learning, your resilience, and your adherence to your values, not by external achievements. Acceptance of uncertainty. Understand that the future is inherently unpredictable, and many factors are beyond your influence. Releasing attachment. Don't let your self-worth be tied to whether a project succeeds or fails, or whether others approve of you. Your worth comes from your character. Learning from every experience. Whether success or failure, view every event as feedback for improving your effort and process next time. Holiday shows how historical figures who achieved lasting greatness often did so by being fanatically focused on what they could control, their effort, their attitude, their principles, and letting go of what they couldn't. They built resilience because their peace wasn't dependent on external validation or specific results. By shifting our focus and energy from trying to control external outcomes to diligently mastering our internal world and our inputs, we starve ego of its need for external validation and perfection. We become more adaptable, more resilient, and ultimately more effective because we are operating within our sphere of genuine influence. Control your effort, control your response, and let the chips fall where they may. That's true freedom. 11. The Siren Song of Opinion and Why External Validation is a Trap. Ryan Holiday is unambiguous. Once you achieve something, ego immediately craves applause, praise, and public recognition. It wants to know what everyone thinks, to see its name in lights, to be hailed as a genius. But this pursuit of external validation is a profound weakness, making us dependent on others and ultimately robbing us of our inner peace and true purpose. Think about it. You've done good work. You've had a success. The natural inclination is to enjoy the recognition, but ego takes it too far. It whispers, "You need more praise. You need everyone to know. You need to defend your reputation. You need to prove them wrong if they doubt you." This constant craving for external approval is a bottomless pit. No amount of praise is ever enough for the ego, because its hunger is insatiable. The danger of this pursuit is that it turns you into a slave. If your self-worth is tied to what others think of you, you become constantly vulnerable. You'll start making decisions not based on what's right or what's effective, but on what will earn you applause or avoid criticism. You'll hesitate to take risks, to innovate, or to speak your truth if it means potentially alienating your audience. You'll become a chameleon, constantly shifting your true self to fit external expectations. Holiday points to historical figures who were destroyed by their need for public acclaim. They became so consumed with their image that they lost touch with reality, neglected their duties, and ultimately made decisions that led to their downfall. They preferred to appear great rather than to be great through their deeds. The antidote to the siren song of opinion is a profound commitment to internal validation and detachment from external praise. This means defining your own metrics. Decide what success means to you based on your values and your purpose, not on what others dictate. Focusing on the work itself. Find your satisfaction in the process, the effort, and the mastery of your craft, independent of how it's received. Cultivating self-sufficiency. Build a robust inner world where your self-worth is derived from your character and your adherence to principles, not from applause or criticism. Being indifferent to praise and blame. Treat both as fleeting external phenomena. Don't let praise inflate your ego, and don't let blame crush your spirit. Avoiding ego's need for winning arguments. Don't engage in debates solely to prove you're right. Focus on understanding and truth. Finding your true audience. Often the most important audience for your work is yourself, or a small, trusted circle of peers whose judgment you respect. By consciously resisting the lure of external validation, you liberate yourself from a constant source of anxiety and dependence. You become truly autonomous, driven by an internal compass rather than the shifting winds of public opinion. This doesn't mean you ignore feedback, but you process it through the filter of your own rational judgment, rather than letting it dictate your sense of self. True strength comes from within, impervious to the fickle nature of the crowd. Silence the siren and find your own true north. Let's confront ego's most dangerous manifestations when we face failure and setbacks. This is where Ryan Holiday's wisdom becomes a true lifeline. The first principle here is always a student, even in defeat, learning from every experience. When things go wrong, ego's natural inclination is to lash out, to blame others, to make excuses, or to simply deny reality. But true growth, resilience, and wisdom are forged only when we humbly embrace failure as our greatest teacher. Think about it. You've poured your effort into something, and it didn't work out. You made a mistake, a project failed, or you faced an unexpected setback. What's the voice in your head telling you? Ego often whispers, It wasn't your fault. They didn't understand you. The conditions were unfair. You're still brilliant. This was just bad luck. This self-protective mechanism prevents us from facing the truth, from doing an honest autopsy of what went wrong, and from extracting the invaluable lessons that failure always offers. If you don't learn from your mistakes, you're condemned to repeat them. Ego, by shielding you from the discomfort of self-assessment, ensures that you remain stagnant, unable to adapt or improve. It keeps you stuck in a cycle of denial and blame rather than allowing you to evolve. Ego can convince us that because we've paid our dues, we no longer need to be self-critical or learn from setbacks. Or, conversely, it can lead us to a deep sense of shame and regret, making us avoid any situation where failure is a possibility. Holiday emphasizes that the greatest individuals in history, those who achieved lasting impact, were not those who avoided failure, but those who embraced it as a crucial feedback mechanism. They saw defeat not as an ending, but as a data point, an opportunity to refine their understanding, their strategy, and their character. They remained perpetual students, even when the lessons were painful. The antidote to ego's defensiveness in defeat is a radical commitment to humble inquiry and relentless self-improvement. This means taking responsibility. Even if external factors played a role, ask what you could have done differently. Focus on your sphere of control, conducting an honest autopsy. Systematically analyze what went wrong without judgment or emotion. What were the facts? What were the mistakes? Seeking critical feedback. Actively ask others for their unvarnished perspective on your performance or decisions. Learning specific lessons. Don't just say, "I learned from it." Identify concrete takeaways and commit to applying them next time. Embracing discomfort. Understand that true learning often involves pain and humility. Don't shy away from it. Maintaining a growth mindset. Believe that your abilities and understanding can always improve, even after a setback. By choosing to remain a student, even in the depths of defeat, you starve ego of its need for self-preservation and external blame. You transform setbacks from stumbling blocks into stepping stones. This practice not only accelerates your growth, but also builds an incredible inner resilience, allowing you to face any challenge with wisdom and an unwavering commitment to continuous improvement. Failure is not the enemy. Ego's reaction to it is. Embrace the lesson, and you'll always emerge stronger. Don't be a victim. Continuing with ego's destructive tendencies in the face of failure, let's zoom in on a particularly common and crippling manifestation, the victim mentality. Ryan Holiday passionately argues that ego, when confronted with a setback, absolutely loves to externalize blame. It whispers, "It wasn't your fault. They did this to you. You're a victim of circumstances. Life is unfair." The powerful antidote to this self-defeating mindset is to take radical responsibility and avoid blame. Think about it. When something goes wrong, it's incredibly tempting to point fingers at the economy, at bad luck, at difficult colleagues, at a flawed system, at anyone or anything but ourselves. This provides a temporary psychological relief. It protects our ego from the uncomfortable truth that we might have made mistakes or contributed to our own misfortune. But this comfort comes at an enormous cost. It robs us of our agency and our ability to learn and grow. If you are a victim, you are powerless. If you attribute your failures solely to external forces, then you have no control over your future. You become a passive recipient of whatever life throws at you, constantly waiting for circumstances to change rather than actively working to change yourself. This is ego's subtle way of keeping you stagnant, safe from the risk of effort and the potential for further failure. It prefers the illusion of blamelessness over the hard work of accountability. We might have legitimate grievances, genuinely unfair situations we've faced, but the Stoic approach, which Holiday echoes, isn't about denying those external factors. It's about recognizing that while external factors might exist, our power lies in our response. We can't control what happens to us, but we absolutely control how we react. The antidote to ego's victim mentality is a profound commitment to radical self-responsibility, even when it's painful. This means focusing on your sphere of control. Regardless of external factors, ask, what could I have done differently? What was my contribution to this outcome? Owning your mistakes. Humbly admit when you've erred, without excuses or rationalizations. This isn't about self-flagellation, but honest assessment. Learning from every error. Treat every setback as a lesson, a piece of feedback from reality on how to improve your approach next time. Directing energy inward. Instead of complaining about external forces, channel that energy into improving yourself and your efforts. Embracing agency. Recognizing that even in the direst circumstances, you always have the power to choose your attitude, your response, and your character. Avoiding gossip and blame circles. Steer clear of environments where people constantly commiserate about how they're victims. These only reinforce the ego's narrative. Holiday presents powerful historical examples of individuals who, despite facing immense adversity and genuine injustice, refused to see themselves as victims. They took responsibility for their response, focused on what they could control, and used their circumstances as fuel for growth and eventual triumph. By consistently choosing responsibility over blame, you strip ego of its most comforting delusion. You reclaim your power, even in moments of defeat. This isn't just about accountability. It's about freedom. It's about recognizing that you are the author of your own story, not a mere character buffeted by external forces. Take responsibility, learn the lesson, and move forward with renewed strength and purpose. That's how you transcend failure and truly grow. The clarity of adversity, how it strips away the non-essential. Ryan Holiday emphasizes that while ego builds a grand, often fragile, palace of self-importance and external validation during times of success, adversity often comes in like a wrecking ball. This might seem devastating, but for those willing to embrace the truth, it's a vital act of purification, revealing what truly matters. When things are going well, we tend to accumulate. We accumulate possessions, commitments, projects, anxieties, and a complex self-image built on external approval. Our lives can become cluttered with the non-essential, things that don't truly serve our purpose or contribute to our well-being, but that our ego convinces us we need. When adversity strikes, a job loss, a failed venture, a health crisis, a public setback, much of that accumulation can be stripped away. This can feel devastating in the moment. The public image might crumble, the financial security might disappear, the lofty plans might collapse. Ego screams in protest, lamenting the loss of status, comfort, and control. But Holiday argues that this stripping away, though painful, is a gift. It forces us to confront reality, to distinguish between what is truly essential and what was merely ego-driven fluff. A significant setback can feel like an existential crisis, because our ego has tied our self-worth to these external constructs. But what if that crisis is actually an opportunity? What if losing some of these things forces us to reconnect with our core values, our true purpose, and our genuine inner strength? Holiday illustrates this with powerful examples of individuals who, after experiencing devastating setbacks, found clarity and purpose they never had during their periods of success. They realized that the losses were actually liberations. The things they thought they needed were holding them back. The pressure to maintain a certain image dissolved, allowing them to finally focus on what genuinely mattered: their character, their principles, their relationships, and their unique contribution. The clarity of adversity means seeing what truly matters. When external comforts and distractions are removed, your core values, your essential relationships, and your true purpose become glaringly clear. Letting go of attachment. Adversity forces us to detach from things we previously thought were indispensable. This detachment is a profound form of freedom. Reconnecting with your true self. Without the ego's need to impress or perform, you can rediscover who you are beneath the layers of expectation and societal pressure. Building a resilient core. When your worth isn't tied to external circumstances, you become unshakable. What ego feared to lose becomes irrelevant. Finding new direction. The stripping away often clears a path for new opportunities, new learning, and a more authentic way of living. By embracing the pain and the lessons of adversity, you actively combat ego's need for comfort and superficiality. You allow reality to humble you, to purify your intentions, and to forge a stronger, more authentic self. Don't waste your struggles. Let adversity be your teacher, stripping away what doesn't matter and revealing the true essence of who you are and what you're truly meant to do. That's where lasting purpose and peace reside. Embrace the struggle. Ryan Holiday insists that ego wants us to believe that success should be easy, that we're entitled to smooth sailing, and that any struggle is a sign of weakness or misfortune. But the truth is, struggle is the crucible where true resilience is forged. It's through the difficulty, the grind, and the discomfort that our character is hardened, our skills are sharpened, and our ego is tamed. Think about it. We all admire people who overcome immense challenges, who face adversity head-on and emerge stronger. Yet when it's our turn, ego often pushes us to avoid discomfort, to seek shortcuts, or to complain about how hard things are. It tells us we shouldn't have to suffer, or that our suffering is unique and unfair. This resistance to struggle prevents us from developing the very mental and emotional fortitude that leads to lasting success and inner peace. Holiday argues that the path of least resistance is often the path of least growth. It's in the moments of intense pressure, when everything seems to be going wrong, that we discover our true limits and, more importantly, our capacity to push past them. Struggle forces us to innovate, to adapt, to dig deeper, and to confront our own weaknesses. It's the essential friction that polishes a rough stone into a gem. Without struggle, there is no genuine strength, no profound wisdom, and no true appreciation for hard-won victories. Ego whispers that we've earned our comfort, that we no longer need to exert ourselves beyond what's easy. But this mindset is a trap. leading to stagnation and a gradual softening of our character. Holiday draws on countless examples of historical figures who actively sought out or embraced struggle. They understood that difficulty wasn't a punishment, but a necessary component of their development. They didn't whine, they worked. They didn't avoid, they adapted. They saw every setback, every challenge, as an opportunity to prove their mettle and to become more capable. The antidote to ego's aversion to struggle is a deliberate commitment to embracing hardship as a path to strength. This means viewing challenges as opportunities. Instead of, "Why me?" ask, "What can this teach me? How can this make me stronger?" Seeking discomfort. Voluntarily put yourself in situations that challenge you, whether physically, intellectually, or emotionally. Practicing resilience. When you fall, get back up. When you fail, try again. This builds mental toughness. Focusing on the process, not just the outcome. Find satisfaction in the effort itself, in the act of pushing through difficulty. Cultivating patience. Understand that significant growth and mastery take time and sustained effort through periods of struggle. Recognizing ego's avoidance tactics. When you feel the urge to quit, to complain, or to externalize blame, recognize that it's ego trying to protect you from necessary discomfort. By consciously embracing the struggle, you starve ego of its desire for ease and instant gratification. You cultivate a profound inner resilience that is impervious to external circumstances. You learn that your capacity is far greater than your ego would ever lead you to believe. Don't fear the struggle. Welcome it. For it is in the depths of hardship that you will find your true strength, forge your unshakable character, and ultimately achieve a deeper, more meaningful success. When we face setbacks, especially significant ones like job loss, public humiliation, or relationship collapse, ego often tries to tell us that our entire identity is shattered. It whispers, "You are a failure. You are nothing now. Your worth depended on that outcome." This leads to profound despair, because ego ties our sense of self to external accomplishments and approval, which are inherently fragile and temporary. Think about it. We often define ourselves by our roles. I am a successful CEO. I am a respected leader. I am a great parent. When those roles are challenged or removed, ego can make us feel as if we've lost who we are. We become brittle because our identity is built on a foundation of sand, external circumstances that can shift or be taken away at any moment. This dependence on external factors for our self-worth is a recipe for constant anxiety and profound vulnerability. Holiday, channeling Stoic wisdom, emphasizes that our true self, our core identity, is not found in our titles, our possessions, our reputation, or our external achievements. It resides in our character, our principles, our ability to choose our response, and our commitment to virtue. These are the only things that are entirely within our control and can never be taken away, regardless of external circumstances. When you understand this, failure takes on a different meaning. A failed project doesn't make you a failure. A job loss doesn't diminish your intrinsic worth as a human being. A criticism doesn't change who you are at your core. These are external events, indifferent to your true self. Your ego might scream that you've lost everything, but your enduring self knows that what truly matters remains untouched. We've seen enough to know that life is unpredictable. Layoffs happen. Markets crash. Relationships end. If our sense of identity is tethered to these fleeting things, Every setback becomes an existential threat. But by cultivating the enduring self, we build an inner resilience that allows us to weather any storm. The antidote to ego's brittle identity is a deliberate focus on what cannot be taken away. This means defining your identity by your character. Are you honest, kind, brave, disciplined? These are the real measures of your worth. Practicing detachment from outcomes. Give your full effort, but don't tie your identity to whether a project succeeds or fails. Embracing internal validation. Your self-worth comes from within, from living in accordance with your principles, not from what others think of you. Focusing on process over prestige. Find satisfaction in the diligent execution of your duties, regardless of the accolades. Cultivating resilience. Knowing that your true strength comes from how you respond to adversity, not from avoiding it. Remembering your purpose. When external roles crumble, reconnect with your fundamental reason for being, your values, and your desire to contribute. Holiday provides inspiring examples of individuals who, stripped of everything, found their true strength in their unwavering character and their commitment to their principles. They proved that what defines us is not what happens to us, but what we choose to be in response. By consciously building your identity on the enduring self, you liberate yourself from ego's dependence on external validation and the fear of loss. You become truly unshakable, knowing that even in the deepest valleys of failure, your core worth and your capacity for virtue remain intact. This is the ultimate freedom, a strength that transcends all circumstances. Find your enduring self, and you will fear no fall. Now let's talk about the master virtue that serves as the ultimate antidote to ego at every stage. The cultivation of humility, a lifelong practice. Ryan Holiday makes it clear that humility isn't about thinking less of yourself. It's about thinking of yourself less, period. It's not self-deprecation. It's an accurate, grounded self-assessment that recognizes your limitations, acknowledges your dependence on others, and fosters a continuous hunger to learn and improve. Think about it. Ego, by its very nature, inflates our sense of self-importance. It tells us we're special, unique, infallible. It closes us off to feedback, makes us resistant to learning, and encourages us to constantly seek attention and validation. Humility, on the other hand, is the open door to growth. It recognizes that we are always capable of error, that there's always more to learn, and that our achievements are often the result of countless factors beyond our individual genius. But Holiday stresses that humility is not weakness, it is strength. It's the strength to admit when you're wrong, to listen to others, to learn from anyone regardless of their status, and to put the mission or the common good above your own personal glory. The greatest leaders and innovators throughout history were often marked by a profound humility, even amidst immense success. They understood that their power came from their willingness to adapt, to learn, and to serve, not from their ego. The cultivation of humility is a daily, lifelong practice that involves radical self-awareness, constantly checking your internal dialogue for signs of ego, e.g., defensiveness, need for praise, resistance to feedback. Acknowledging your limitations, being honest about what you don't know, what you're not good at, and where you need help. Embracing the student mindset, always being eager to learn, regardless of your current expertise or position. Seeking criticism, actively asking for feedback, especially the uncomfortable kind, and viewing it as a gift. Practicing gratitude, recognizing the role of luck, circumstance, and the contributions of others in your successes. Doing the unglamorous work, staying connected to the foundational tasks, the dirty work that keeps you grounded. Putting the work first, focusing on the quality and impact of your contributions rather than on your personal recognition. Understanding your place in the world, recognizing your smallness in the grand scheme of things, and the impermanence of all external achievements. By consistently cultivating humility, you starve ego of its primary fuel, inflated self-importance. You become more adaptable, more resilient, and more genuinely effective. You open yourself up to continuous growth and deeper connections with others. This isn't about shrinking yourself. It's about expanding your capacity for true greatness by getting your ego out of the way. Humility isn't just a virtue. It's the gateway to wisdom and lasting fulfillment. Make it your constant companion. Purpose over persona. Ryan Holiday powerfully argues that ego is obsessed with how we appear to others, with our reputation, our status, and the narrative we construct about ourselves. But true fulfillment, genuine impact, and lasting peace come from being relentlessly focused on a clear, meaningful purpose, on what we are here to contribute, rather than on the external show. Think about it. Ego wants the title, the fancy office, the public accolades, the perfect social media profile. It wants the appearance of success, even if it means compromising integrity or neglecting the actual work. It's a constant performance, exhausting, and ultimately empty. This focus on persona, on who you want others to think you are, is a trap because it makes you dependent on external validation, and it pulls your energy away from where it truly matters, on making a genuine impact. When your primary focus is on persona, you're always playing to the crowd. You might hesitate to take risks, to challenge norms, or to speak your truth if it threatens your carefully constructed image. You become brittle because your identity is tied to something as fragile as public opinion. This is why many people, even after achieving great external success, feel an emptiness inside. They've built an impressive persona, but they've neglected their deeper purpose. The antidote to ego's obsession with persona is a radical commitment to a clear, meaningful purpose that transcends your own self-interest. This means defining your why. What genuinely motivates you? What problem are you trying to solve? What contribution do you want to make to the world? Focusing on the work itself. Let the quality of your output be your measure of success, not the applause or the public recognition. Embracing obscurity. Be willing to do the hard, unglamorous work behind the scenes, knowing that true impact often happens away from the spotlight. Prioritizing principles over popularity. Make decisions based on your values and what's right, even if it's unpopular or doesn't enhance your image. Cultivating an inner scorecard. Measure your worth by your own integrity and effort, not by what others think or say about you. Being a builder, not just a showman. Focus on creating tangible value, on solving real problems, and on leaving something meaningful behind, serving something larger than yourself. When your purpose is about contributing to others or a greater cause, your ego naturally diminishes because it's not about you. Holiday provides inspiring examples of individuals who were so driven by their purpose that they were largely indifferent to their own image or personal gain. They were willing to sacrifice personal comfort, reputation, and even their lives for something they believed in, demonstrating the profound power of a life lived with purpose. By consistently choosing purpose over persona, you starve ego of its need for external validation and its constant self-promotion. You build a life that is authentic, meaningful, and deeply satisfying, regardless of what the world says or thinks about you. This is the ultimate liberation from ego's demands, allowing you to live with integrity, focus, and a profound sense of genuine contribution. Find your purpose, and your ego will naturally recede into the background, where it belongs. The lifelong battle for self-awareness. All right, my friends, we've journeyed through the powerful insights of Ryan Holiday's Ego is the Enemy. We've explored how ego, that insidious internal voice of self-importance, sabotages us at every turn, when we're aspiring, when we're successful, and especially when we face the inevitable setbacks of life. So, what's the overarching message that Holiday wants us to take away from this journey? The core message from Ryan Holiday is this: ego is a pervasive and dangerous enemy that constantly threatens our ability to learn, adapt, and achieve true, lasting success and fulfillment. It's not about lacking confidence, but about an unhealthy self-belief that blinds us to reality, makes us brittle in the face of adversity, and constantly seeks external validation. He urges us to embark on a lifelong battle for self-awareness, recognizing ego's subtle manifestations and actively cultivating the virtues that keep it in check. Humility. Always be a student, open to learning, feedback, and admitting when you're wrong. Discipline and diligence. Focus on the quiet, unglamorous work, letting actions speak louder than words. Objectivity and reality. See things as they are, without delusion or self-deception. Resilience. Embrace struggle, learn from failure, and take radical responsibility for your responses, never playing the victim. Purpose. Focus on genuine contribution and the larger mission, not on image, status, or external validation. Ego is the Enemy isn't a book you read once and are done with. It's a continuous practice, a constant vigilance against that inner voice that wants to inflate your sense of self and keep you from growing. It's about building a robust internal framework that allows you to remain grounded, adaptable, and truly effective, regardless of life's ups and downs. For those of us in our 40s and 50s who have seen enough of life to know that true strength comes from within, this book offers an invaluable guide. It's about letting go of what doesn't serve you, the need for praise, the fear of failure, the illusion of invincibility, so you can fully embrace what truly matters: a life of continuous learning, purposeful action, and profound contribution. So how will you begin to tame your ego today? What's one area where you can practice a little more humility, a little more self-awareness, or a little less emphasis on persona? The journey is lifelong, but the rewards are immeasurable.